red, white and blue. I'm an Englishman. I am the earth. I am a rock. I am the universe. I am the beat. I'm the trees. I'm the roots. I'm the aura of herbs. I am the beat. Flavors without frontiers. I'm free from. I am taste. I'm a smile at the end of a bad day. I am the beat. I'm a table set for a feast. I'm the summer breeze. I'm the winter chill. I'm the newborn child. I'm the echo of childhood. I'm a dreamer. I'm a blackbird. I will make the sky roar. I'm a black cat with a white tail. I am the beat. I'm the dance of fools and beasts. I'm the chant every man, woman and child deserves. I am freedom. And I am one brilliant day. I'm a survivor and I am what and who I am. I never walk in circles when I can walk in a straight line. I am love, I'm a father, I'm the flame of my forefathers and all those that became before me. I am the black farmer, and this is my soul.
Welcome to the TBE Podcast. Today I am joined by Wilfred Emmanuel-Jones, the founder and creator of The Black Farmer. Hopefully there are going to be no porkies in the story. Wilfred, how are you?
Oh, well, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a gorgeous winter morning. I hope it stays like this all winter.
Fantastic. And how are things going today?
I mean, I've got a busy schedule as ever, and this is a very busy time of the year for us because, as you can imagine, a lot of people eat sausages and chicken, etc. So you dash around making sure that we could get supply.
Fantastic. And what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I'm just having breakfast as we speak. I'm a coffee and a croissant man for breakfast.
Fantastic. And what is the one thing you would have done differently before you turned 20?
The one thing I would have done differently before I was 20 is that I'm dyslexic, and I spent most of my life being really ashamed of it. And the amount of energy I put in trying to hide it was such a waste of time. And if I was courageous enough to have admitted it very early on, A, I may have got a lot of help, and B, I could have used that energy doing other things. So that is my big regret.
Very interesting. And what is the one company right now that inspires you?
The one company now that inspires me, besides my own, I'm really interested in what's happening in the banking sphere. Okay. So a number of these challenger banks, like Tide, for example, who are coming in using new technology to really appeal to entrepreneurs. Because having run a business for over 10 years, one of my great big criticisms is that the banking sector is useless when it comes to supporting entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. Well, we have just interviewed George Beavers, the founder of Tide, actually, who featured in our last episode.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, tell him I'm interested in being a customer.
I certainly will. You can sign up to your own account in 2 minutes, actually.
Exactly. That's just so fantastic.
Exactly. It's the way forward, I believe. So moving on to your early career, could you just summarize your career to date in the next 2 to 3 minutes?
Well, I'm a classic working class boy done well. I was brought up on society's dustbin heap, that I had a dream, and that dream was to try and better my life. And I think that I am a demonstration of, with tenacity, drive. I'm an example that with tenacity and drive, it is possible to achieve anything, regardless of your background, color of your skin, qualifications. Is that if you have the right mindset, you could actually achieve anything that you want in life.
Really interesting. And you obviously grew up in Jamaica. What was that upbringing like?
I can't really remember what it was like in Jamaica because I came to this country when I was 3 years old. But it's a developing country. And so a lot of the things that we take for granted over here, like electricity, running water, my mother would tell me stories of when she had to walk miles to get water before she went to school, that all the basic things we take for granted over here, they just didn't have. So I know that life would have been exotic on one level, but also very difficult, especially being poor on another level.
And have you been back to Jamaica since?
Yes, I've been back to Jamaica a couple of times. And one of the great things about being Jamaican is that the Jamaican people are very proud of those of us Jamaicans who've gone on and made it.
Fantastic. And when you came to the UK, you went into the army and you very quickly got discharged. Tell us about that.
Well, yes, I joined the army, and the only reason I joined the army is because I wanted to get away from home. And having left school without any qualifications, there didn't seem to be many options. But one of the most important things about becoming a soldier is that you work as a team and you do as you're told. And if you're a black guy with a bit of an attitude, you know, A, you're going to get your head kicked in, and B, you're going to get a dishonourable discharge to your name.
And how long were you in the army for?
About a year. I was in about a year where they, you know, to give them their due, they tried their best to lick me into shape. But, you know, entrepreneurialism and soldier doesn't really go together. Because, you know, the whole thing about being an entrepreneur is to challenge the status quo, is to question everything. You're asking for trouble if you're going to do that in the military.
And when you left the army, you went to go and start your own PR company with your wife, Michaela. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so before I started my PR company, I mean, we've got to go back. I got kicked out of the army, and I then went from the army to learn to be a chef. And I worked as a chef for a number of years. And in those days, chefing was not a glamorous profession. It was where the losers in life went to. But, you know, as a loser, I really enjoyed being a chef. But I decided, because I always carried a dream with me from when I was a young kid, that I'd like to own my own farm. And I always knew that I had to earn a lot of money to be able to be in a position to do that. So I was always driven to better my life. So I decided that I would like to work in television, which seemed to be in a preposterous ambition, considering that A, I didn't have any qualifications, and B, TV is very much full of the Oxbridge types. But again, back to my philosophy that all you need to do is have the right attitude, which is focus, determination, and passion to achieve any of your dreams. I spent 2.5 years slogging it to try and get an opportunity to get a break in television, which thankfully I did get. There was
the angels, as you all
I call them guardian angels. Yes, I believe that one of the key things in life is to find your guardian angels. Those people who are entrepreneurial in their own way, who will go out of their way to give you a break. And every single stage of my career, I found guardian angels to give me that break. And so I spent a long time at the BBC working on various TV programs as a producer. And I traveled the world making programs as a producer-director. And I had the opportunity to work with some of the big-name celebrity chefs like Gordon Ramsay, James Martin, Anthony Roy Thompson.
And what was Gordon Ramsay like?
Well, Gordon Ramsay, at that time when I met him, was quite shy and found the whole filming process intimidating. Because, believe it or not, when you've got a camera stuck in your face, it's a very vulnerable place to be. And that it's really difficult to be yourself. And I think that what Gordon probably learned over time is that the best way to be in front of a camera is to be yourself. And that is what we see. And that is what has made his name. him, just like Floyd, the big mistake that a lot of people make when they get in front of the camera is they try and be something that they're not, whereas the key is just to be yourself. So here's an example of what you can achieve in life by just being yourself. Anyhow, I did that for about 15 years, and then I still didn't have enough money to buy my farm. So I decided that I would have to run my own business, because you really can't achieve much unless you're a banker, which I was never going to be, to achieve the money you want to do your own thing, unless you run your own business. So I decided to leave the BBC and start up my food and drink marketing agency with my wife, Michaela. And like all entrepreneurs will know, there's nothing more scary than when you're starting up. Not only when you're just starting up, but starting up with no money, no clients. I only had enough money to pay my mortgage for 3 months. And all you have is your absolute passion to drive you through. And again, I was lucky I found the people who gave me a break, gave me, the first of the business, and I ran that business for about 15 years, and then that gave me the money to buy my farm.
Fantastic. And just before we go on to the Black Farmer, you have just launched your own book, all about jeopardy, and when we met a few weeks ago, this is all you talked about. Why is jeopardy so important when running a business?
Well, all of my life, what I've had to do to achieve the things I wanted is to make a friend of uncertainty. Most people think that what they need to do is to gather certainty around them. Well, there's only one thing I could ever guarantee in life, and that is there's a number of things I could guarantee. One is you're going to die, and the other one is that life is uncertain. And rather than spending your life being terrified of this uncertainty, my premise is that what you need to do is you need to create an attitude, a mindset for you to be able to deal with uncertainty. And if you have that mindset, it doesn't matter what change comes along, you're always prepared for it. And I've met many people in my life. I've been fortunate enough to go and do lots of talks around the country and talk to a lot of people who want to start their own business. And so I thought that actually if I could write a book giving some of my experiences and my philosophy about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, it might help a lot of people. Because, we live in this world where sometimes people think that entrepreneurialism is some sort of God-given gift, but it isn't, I don't believe. I think it really is about getting a mindset. That we all have the capacity to be entrepreneurs, it's just understanding what we mean by that mindset. And that mindset means that you don't depend too much on reason and logic. Reason and logic means that reason and logic is limiting, and that all the great things that we have achieved as a human race has defined reason and logic. All the great causes on values and principles are beyond reason and logic. Reason and logic has its place, but you should not base everything you do on it. You have to have a vision. You have to dream that things are possible. Going to the moon could have been seen as impossible, but when you dream it, you can make that possible. So the whole basis of this book really is to go around looking at what are the reasons that stop people living the lives that they want to live. And fear is one of the great big things that prevents people. So it looks at, why does fear have such a strong hold over our lives? The other area is sort of being and belonging. Most people don't know that actually you can never achieve anything in life or be your authentic self if you want to belong. If you want to be, you have to accept that some people might be upset by you being who you are. And so those are the areas that I've explored. And, I've been on many journeys in my life, not only business, personal, but also, I've been at death's door. about 4 years ago, I had acute myeloid leukemia, and I talk a lot about this in the book, and I was, really touching death, staring at it. And there's nothing that focuses the mind more than being close to death. And it puts your life into some sort of perspective, and you try and work out what is important in your life and what isn't. And I learned a lot through that. So even though this terrible cough and I have chest problems and I've been left with vitiligo, it's been a really important thing that's happened to me having this cancer, and that it's helped me to have a real much better perspective about how to grow personally, and then also how that growth can help people when they're starting up or running their businesses.
And do you think by having been through the cancer treatment, has that created you a stronger mindset? And how have you actually created that mindset?
Yes, I do. I think the thing that people need to understand about success is that you cannot be successful unless you failed. Unless you, again, make a friend of failure and see that is a vital thing of being successful. So being ill, having a cancer, is something that is a great teacher. I'm a great believer that every day is a school day, and that I don't wish it on cancer on anybody, but I do think that you should be open to learn. Do not become fixed. Always challenge your perceived wisdom in what's happening around you.
And how have you created such a strong mindset to get to where you are?
Have I created that?
Yeah.
Well, the way I've created a strong mindset is that I constantly challenge the way that I think. I'm really interested in new ideas, new things. I mean, one of the things we talked about earlier on is this tide banking. Big established businesses or people who are fixed in a way of life. You're slowly dying, that I sort of recognize, and that the only way to keep alive is to challenge yourself when it's comfortable. Many people and many businesses, that's the point of when they're at the greatest risk, when they're comfortable, because there's only one way to go, is down, or you again put yourself in that place of jeopardy in order to go forward.
And what do you think has been the biggest failure you have had to date? What have you learned from it? And how did you pick yourself back up again?
My biggest failure that I've learned from is that because I think something is a great idea doesn't mean that everybody else is going to think it so. And I'll give you an example of that. One of the things that I'm really into is clothes. And if this was television, people would see that. That's right, yeah, you can see that. That's a Spanish bullfighter's jacket. And that I'm really into my clothes. And so I decided that I would launch a men's clothing range. And I went around the country selling these products. And what was really interesting is that when the men would try on these clothes, they would love it. But the moment their wives, girlfriends came along and saw them, they'd take one look at them and go, nah. And the men wouldn't buy it. And it taught me a big lesson that women have a massive amount of power over what their men wear. And so you could see why the female fashion industry is big, and men just basically keep their choices down to a very minimum range because their women won't allow them to walk around like dandies.
Fantastic. So moving on to the Black Farmer, where did the idea come from? What is the Black Farmer, and how is the business going to date?
Well, when I got enough money to buy my farm, and my farm's down in the West Country on the Devon-Cornwall border, near a place called Launceston. One of the things that I realised was that there's this big gap between rural and urban Britain, and I was quite shocked by it. And I saw, actually, there's an opportunity to create a brand that could try and combine to get a better understanding. And also to get rid of some sort of stereotypes about who, who's in farming and who lives in rural Britain. And I decided, look, I wanted to create a brand that was going to be a quintessentially British brand, and a British brand that is representative of Britain today, not Britain yesterday. Back then, Britishness would have been seen, Britain from the 1950s backwards, not Britain from the 1950s onwards. And so I decided, look, I'm going to create a brand. I was going to do something quintessentially British. And so you can't get anything more quintessentially British than a sausage. And I was going to work with farmers and manufacturers to come up with a product, which I did. And then the next thing really was to come up with a brand name. And all of my next door neighbours used to call me the Black Farmer. And I thought to myself, actually, that's a really good brand name, because A, no one else out there could nick the idea, and then B, it has a bit of an edge to it, because in this world of political correctness, people are very nervous about what is the correct language to use. And so by creating a brand called the Black Farmer, it's that double take moment for people. They're not too sure about, whether you should say that or not. Not only are they not too sure, but it also gives permission to use the word black, because believe it or not, there are certain parts of Britain where people would think by using the word black, it's sort of slightly it's not being polite. And so it's, in its way, it helps to communicate it's acceptable to use the word black. And I think all too often is that in our sort of metropolitan cities, we sometimes forget that not everybody is as sophisticated in language as the rest of the country.
And when you launched the Black Farmer, did you get any critics?
Yeah. So, some people were offended by it. I can remember that actually one person reported me to, at the time, it was called the Commission of Racial Equality. I presume it was a white person. And the reason they reported me to the Commission of Racial Equality was that I used to do some bacon. And the tagline for the bacon, because the thing about bacon is that, the thing I couldn't bear is that when you're frying bacon, you have all that disgusting juice and those horrible white bits on it. So I had my bacon, Black Farmer, and its tagline was "No white bits." And somebody complained to the Racial Equality saying that, that was being racist. They thought I was being racist against white people.
You just have to keep going, I guess.
Well, it just goes to show that, you can't really... One of the things about being politically correct is that you're trying to accommodate every mindset, and you just have to accept that sometimes some people see something in something that doesn't exist.
Interesting. And how is business going to date?
It's going very well. So the business is a licensing business, really. So we do sausages, we do chicken, we do pork, we do eggs. And one of the things I'm really looking to go into things like restaurants. I'd like to do a Black Farmer restaurant chain where we are doing, again, quintessentially British food, but really celebrating rural Britain. That's one of the things I'm quite excited to look at.
Fantastic. And how many sausages are you selling a year?
Sausages, God, we sell, tons and tons. In fact, sausages is not our biggest growth area. Our biggest growth area is chicken.
Okay.
That's where most people seem to be going these days.
Fantastic. And do you love eating your own products?
Oh God, yes. Well, I think I think the key thing is that we tend to make sure that all of our products has a distinctive flavour. So it's just, you either like it or you don't. I'm not into, again, a lot of the retailers, they're trying to accommodate such a wide variety of tastes. All too often, their products don't have any personality. And with the Black Farmer, it has personality because it has flavour and taste.
And how do you keep relationships with retailers? And I saw, are you in Asda as of yet?
So yeah, well, we're not in Asda at the moment, but we're in most of the big supermarkets. And, it's tough, really, because I think the food industry at the moment is going through this big sort of consolidation. And that own label is, in a sense, killing off brands. And I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a move away. The consumer is going to move away from big consolidators and go back to brands. I think people want to have a relationship with the people who are producing their foods rather than this big entity where they can't identify with.
And you just launched your own food and drink accelerator. Tell us more about that and how is it going so far?
Well, again, what I find is that if you watch TV, a lot of the business programs are based on people thinking it's all about a great idea and getting money, and it isn't. I think that actually what you need when you're starting up a business is advice, experience, and room to make mistakes, because you will. And the worst time to make a mistake is when you're indebted to someone else. And I want to create an environment where, you can grow, make mistakes, and not lose a massive amount of your equity as you make those sort of mistakes. And I think it's much better to be part of an accelerator where it's run or driven by entrepreneurs because they understand the pain you go through, rather than money men who are just wanting their return as fast as possible. And we launched earlier this year. We've got one of the brands that will be launching in Asda and Ocado at the end of this year, in December. So we've already got those listings. And then we've also got another one of those that will be launching next year, early next year. So, we've got 5 in the accelerator at the moment, and so we've already got 2 that are doing really well.
And are you investing in the companies personally, or how does that work?
Well, it's advice-based, and we invest. So we will do all of the, the design, all of the sort of initial startup stuff, because again, those costs can be controlled, really.
Interesting. Well, you said earlier you're dyslexic like myself, and we both left school with no qualifications. Has that held you back in any way? Has that given you a stronger mindset, and has it held you back?
Well, one of the problems we have in our society is that people like you and I probably would never get to an interview stage because we wouldn't get past the application stage. And I believe that, the computer says no age is throwing a lot of people on society's dustbin heap. Not only throwing a lot of people on society's dustbin heap, but throwing people who actually can be of great benefit to companies because we think differently. And that way of thinking differently can be a real asset for companies. But actually the companies, the systems that they employ in terms of recruiting people, discard people like us. And I just think that's why we end up doing our own thing, because there's no options for us within corporate Britain. And I believe that needs to change. If otherwise, corporate Britain are going to end up in trouble. That's why, challengers, be that challenger banks or challenger brands, can wipe out established companies, because established businesses, they're all about mitigating risk, getting rid of risk. Whereas you can't grow unless you're prepared to take risk. And that, for me, is what they should look at, these companies, and say, actually, I believe there should be a certain percentage of people within businesses they really want to do well. They should be ticked as dyslexic. You say they should be proud to say, actually, X percentage of our workforce are dyslexic. You will know that actually you then got a good old balanced company then.
Really interesting. So a matter of interest, if you were Prime Minister tomorrow, would you embrace and would you encourage other companies to employ like-minded people?
Well, no, you see, I don't believe that you should legislate to bring about change. I think what you do is that you create opportunity for people like that, which will then create that change. So the things that's not good for countries is when you allow great monopolies to come about, like we have in our food industry at the moment. There's just, it's not good just to have 4 or 5 big retailers that dominate the food chain. And so what you want to do is that you want to bring about legislation that makes it easier for smaller people to compete, and then that itself will bring about change.
Agreed. And what is the biggest challenge right now in the food industry?
Well, the biggest challenge in the food industry is that it's very difficult for startups to get into the big retailers, because one of the things about the internet revolution is that it's really got rid of the gatekeepers, publishing, TV, where the consumer could go direct, and the more you allow that to happen, the more it brings about innovation. And the supermarkets are still gatekeepers, because it's where else do you sell your product if you don't do it through them? And so what I think we need to do is to either create something else that means you don't have to go through the gatekeepers, or it's cheaper for people to distribute their products without needing to go through the gatekeepers.
Fantastic. And where is home now for you?
Yeah,
How do you spend your time?
So this is my flat here in London, so this is where I am when I'm doing business. And then obviously I've got my farm down in Devon, and I like to spend most of my time down in Devon because obviously it's a nicer environment.
Yeah.
But this is very convenient when I'm doing business up here.
And how do you relax? Do you go on nice country walks on your farm? Yeah.
Well, before I had a hip operation, I was into flamenco in a big way, as you can see by that jacket.
Yeah.
And I love Spain. I love flamenco, and if my hip ever returns back to normal, that's the sort of thing I would like to pick up again.
And what is your big, hairy, audacious goal for the next 5 years? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years, yourself or the business?
My big what?
Hairy, audacious goal.
My big audacious goal in the next 5 years. Well, I would like to be, one of those. What's the right word for it? And I like to inspire people, and I like to be. I'd like to create something. Probably develop the hatchery in a way that people who are outsiders, who are different, will have a home where they could come to and be allowed to prosper and do well, based on the fact that they're a bit odd and they're a bit different. But I believe those are the people who bring about change. So it's creating a home for oddballs like me, young oddballs like me.
And is the hatchery something you now want to focus on more and more?
That's one of the things that I hope that could do that.
And have you got some more ideas up your sleeve, maybe?
Well, yes, the big one at the moment, actually. I met a group of four sisters, really big into food, and they're from a Arabic background, and I was talking to them, and we're developing an idea. I've come with an idea to create a brand called Behind the Veil. And so again, these are girls who are Muslim. They're very Western. But if you look at the sort of sensibilities of our society today and about the whole thing about the veil, to have a brand that's right in your face, that's called Behind the Veil, where you've got these sassy girls who are British, who are it's a food and lifestyle brand. That's the sort of thing I like doing, just challenging stereotypes and conventions.
And before we finish, I wanted to ask, what still motivates you, and how do you still get that fire in your belly every morning?
Well, what motivates me now is that, I've had 4 years of life that I shouldn't have had. So it's to try to make the best of it every day. And that the greatest gift you could leave behind is to inspire people, to know that you've made a difference to help people on their journey of life. I'm not really motivated by money or having big status things. I'm really into actually leaving a message of, to the human race. That's what motivates me.
And just to finish, what is the one piece of advice you would give to an entrepreneur?
The one piece of advice that I would give to entrepreneurs is you are in the ring, and that it takes courage to go into the ring, because inside that ring you have to deal with vulnerability, fear, and you have to walk through vulnerability and fear to get to a place of courage. Do not be put off by those outside the ring, the commentators, the fearmongers, the ones who are actually analysing how you're doing things. They're irrelevant. Only ever take advice from somebody else who is in the ring with you, who has experience being in the ring. Society is full of all those people outside the ring telling you how you should and shouldn't do it. They are irrelevant. It's those in the ring you should listen to.
Well, it's an amazing story. Thank you so much for your time. And to finish, where can people buy your book?
So my book's available online from Amazon, and also they come to my website and social media pages. It's available there, and they could also, if they buy it from me, they'll get a signature.
Well, thank you so much for your time and good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we hope you enjoyed the amazing story we have just heard. For more stories that are coming out very soon, please do subscribe and give us a review. It'll be much appreciated. Some further entrepreneurs that we are soon to hear from include Sushi founder Simon Woodruff, James Watt, founder of Brewdog Beer, and we have many, many more entrepreneurs to come. Thank you and good luck with your ventures.